a memorial to all of those. On the question of election interference, we got these disclosures from the intelligence community this week and the Justice Department. This was a sophisticated scheme to interfere in the election by setting up fake news sites, paying $10 million to a Tennessee-based company to launder Moscow's propaganda. They used podcasters, they used well-known personalities on YouTube to trick American voters in swing states, according to the DOJ. How effective has this campaign been?
Well, that's a really hard question to answer, Margaret, because that gets into the question of, gosh, are these crazy right-wing websites and right-wing journalists who evidently their money came from Russia, are they actually having an impact on the election? It's sort of hard to believe in a 50-50 election that's going to be played out in sort of 4 or 5 states that it's not going to have some impact on the margin, which is why 2 things are really important. Number one, back to the FBI, back to our intelligence community, they need to double down on identifying, naming and shaming those countries that are doing this, and Chairman McCall was right. It's primarily Russia. Russia has really pulled out all the stops, but it's also China, it's also Iran. There's even some other countries that are thinking about it. But Margaret, I feel very passionately about this. They can only succeed if American citizens hand over their autonomy, their sovereignty, their critical thinking abilities to the Russians or to the Chinese. And so what I always tell my constituents, if you're looking at some random social media site and you are getting hotter and hotter and angrier, and people who disagree with you are not just the opposition, but they're traitors, you know what you're doing? You are being manipulated. And it may just be by Facebook's algorithms, but there's some chance it might actually be the Kremlin or the Chinese or the Iranians who are manipulating you. And if you're going to be manipulated that easily, guess what? This country is going to get the democracy that we deserve.
Vladimir Putin publicly said he was endorsing Vice President Harris this past week. U.S. intelligence, though, assesses that it is Donald Trump that is, in fact, Moscow's preferred candidate. Do you know whether Putin is directing this particular campaign?
Well, I will tell you that super sensitive things like meddling in U.S. elections, you know the nature of the Kremlin and of Putin and of his autocracy. Nothing serious happens in Russia without Vladimir Putin signing off on it. So precisely how involved he is an open question. But believe me, yes, he would. And look, the whole, I'm endorsing Harris thing. Yeah. All you need to do is listen to the way the 2 candidates talk about Russia and Ukraine, and you can develop a pretty independent sense of what Putin would like to see happen on Election Day.
You said earlier this week that banks are required to research their clients. When you were being asked about this case of a Tennessee-based company that CBS is reporting is Tenet Media that was being manipulated by the Russians. What is the principle you're asking to be applied here?
Well, I guess, and I'm not talking about legal compulsion necessarily here, although banks are required to know their customers. It's nice to imagine that, massive social media platforms or massive media platforms like Tenet might actually do a little research to try to figure out where their money is coming from. Yeah. Frankly, the people who look at their media have a right to know where that money comes from. So, at a minimum, check this stuff out because you may not want to be complicit in a Kremlin operation.
Congressman Himes, thank you for your insight. We'll be right back.